Good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Kernersville Board of Aldermen. I'll now call this meeting to order. We'll begin with an invocation by Reverend David Miller, Triad Church of Christ.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day that you've blessed us with. God, I pray that you'd help us all, Father, to recognize the beauty and the splendor of your creation. Help us, Father, to recognize that it's evidence of your existence. And also it is evidence as well, too, that you're in control of all things. Father, as we begin this meeting tonight, I ask, Father, that you might bless those that are taking part in tonight's proceedings. I pray, God, that you might lead them in a spirit of like-mindedness, and also, Father, with the spirit of restraint, with everything being done in order, and also, Father, with great courtesy and professionalism. Father, we thank you for this wonderful community that is Kernersville. It's a wonderful place. It's a place of prosperity. It's a place of happiness. It's a great place to call home, Father. And we recognize, Father, that we certainly have that to be thankful for tonight as we come into your presence. I pray, God, at this time that you might guide our leadership in the year to come. I pray, Lord, that you might help them, Father, to have the proper wisdom, Father, to do that which is both the will of the people of this town, and also that, Father, which is in the best interest of this town, Father, going forward. Lord, we're thankful for the recent elections. We're thankful, Father, for all that participated, whether by voting or running for office, Lord. Certainly there are plenty of people here that are interested, Father, in this town and its future. And Father, that is certainly a wonderful thing, and we thank you for that. Lord, I pray now that you might bless these proceedings, and I pray once again that all we say and do might honor and glorify you, Father, you who are the one who puts all authorities in place. For it's in the wonderful name of your Son, Jesus Christ, we ask it, and amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. You may be seated. All right, we'll begin this evening with a ceremonial presentation. At this time, I'd like to recognize Liz Jernigan. Liz is here to present an award to Mr. Jeff Hadley, the longtime planning director and community development director, both of the town of Kernersville. Liz? Great. Well, thank you so much for having me. It truly is an honor to be here and present this award to Jeff on behalf of the North Carolina chapter of the American Planning Association. I was fortunate enough to work down the road in the Piedmont Trial Regional Council for many years. Am I not loud now? And over that time, I really had the opportunity to get to know Jeff through a number of boards and committees and projects that we were working on. It was fun to see so many wonderful things happening in Kernersville, and I always appreciated Jeff's vision, not only for the long-term bigger projects, but the short-term sense of community and everything that he could bring to a place no matter how small. He cares about all of the people, and that was always present in all of the work that he did. And that's at the heart of what planning is making a better place for our people. So on behalf of the North Carolina chapter, it is a pleasure to present this award to Jeff for his contributions, not only to the town of Kernersville, but to the state of North Carolina.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Appreciate it, Elizabeth.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Here. Yeah, thank you, everyone. I want to say one thing for sure. My wife helped me all along, so she kept. If it wasn't for my wife, it wouldn't be in balance right now. It's been a 25-year run. A kid from rural Minnesota getting a great award from North Carolinians is great. I appreciate it, and 25 years. Curtis and I started 25 years ago. Mayor Morgan and I started 25 years ago. And so we all enjoyed ourselves, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Jim, do you need a moment for photo picture? Does anybody else want to make a speech?
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I appreciate it. Jeff, we appreciate all you do, especially the fact that after a big presentation of award, you're staying and finishing out this meeting with us. So the work is never done. For those of you who have not heard, Jeff was also recognized last night at the Kernersville Chamber of Commerce banquet with the Lawrence Pope Economic Development Award, another Lifetime Achievement Award. So we appreciate all you do. All right, we will begin then with our regular agenda. We have a public hearing on proposed financing. When an agenda item is denoted as a public hearing, persons attending shall be permitted to address the Board of Aldermen regarding the item under consideration. Those speaking in favor speaking first, and those against speaking second. I have not had anyone sign up to speak on this public hearing item, but I'll call it and see if there is a speaker who would like to speak to it. Item 1A is public hearing on proposed financing. A proposed resolution of the Board of Aldermen of the town of Kernersville, North Carolina, approving an installment financing contract and deed of trust, security agreement and fixture filing, the execution and delivery thereof, and providing for certain other related matters. It's item A, consideration of a resolution for improvements to Civitan Park, Ivy Redmond Sports Complex, and the public service garage. Before I open the public hearing, Mr. Swisher, do you have anything to add or change in that proposal?
Just briefly, Madam Mayor, this is a resolution for financing on the three items that you mentioned that were approved in the budget by this board. Total amount $1.62 million. It will change slightly. The resolution itself will not change, but we will ask to pull item B from the agenda, which is the contract award for the construction improvements at Civitan Park. But we will continue, we talked to the bank today, so we'll continue to move forward with the resolution, not to exceed $1.62 million in financing. The only other thing it will change will be in the loan contract. That portion, the $1.3 million for Civitan Park will not be in there. So it will just be the $320,000 for the sunshades and the garage roof replacement. So that will change and the collateral will change, but that's not part of what the board's approving tonight anyway. It's just the resolution awarding the financing contract to Pinnacle Financial Partners, interest rate 1.49% for a 10-year term.
Is there any questions, Mr. Swisher, at this time? All right, this is a public hearing. I'll declare the public hearing open. There's no one signed up to speak in favor, but is there anyone who's here present tonight who would like to speak in favor? Seeing none, is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Do you have the vote? All right.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Item 2 is public session. We'll begin with speakers from the floor. The first person I have signed up to speak is Lisa Miller.
Thank you. I am Lisa Miller. I am Senior Center Director for the Shepherd Center of Kernersville, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the Shepherd Center.
Hit the button.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
There we go. All right. I'm Lisa Miller. I'm the Senior Center Director for the Shepherd Center of Kernersville, and tonight I'm here on behalf of the Shepherd Center of Kernersville to say thank you. Thank you to the Board of Aldermen in the town of Kernersville for 23 and a half years providing space for the Senior Center to operate in the basement of what was then the Patterson Memorial Library and is now Salvation Army Building at 130 East Mountain Street. I told Don last week I found the original contract. It was dated April 8th, 1998, when the Senior Center took possession of the basement and we began operating programming for the seniors in our community. It's been a wonderful space for us. We are now pleased to be at 636 Grayland Street and operating under one roof as the Shepherd Center with our services and our programs. So I just wanted to come and say a personal thank you to each one of you, to the staff at the town of Kernersville, to Doran and his staff, to everyone who's just been there for us. Anything we've needed, the town's always been there for us. And we look forward to continuing our relationship with the town of Kernersville, but in a new location. And just to personally invite you, anytime you're down Grayland Street, swing in, pop in those doors, and I'll be glad to give any of you a tour of the new building. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. Our folks are so happy. We opened programming up there last Monday to great success. We have a few items left in the old facility that we're getting to new homes for folks, and we hope to be have everything out before the end of the year, and I'll turn the keys back over to Curtis. But I just wanted to come and say a personal thank you to each one of you.
Thank you, Lisa, and congratulations. All right, the next item is item B, and Mr. Swisher, you had requested we remove that.
Yes, ma'am. I think the question was asked last week, the difference in the bids. We were told by the contractor that the difference mainly was because they were doing the grading in-house and all of the earthwork in-house. That's somewhat true, but not entirely the difference in the bid. They left out a bid on one of the components of the park. That's makes up the other part of the difference. So we're asking that that be withdrawn. We will go back out and rebid the project and come back into the board probably in January with another bid.
Would you like a motion, a vote by the board to amend the agenda, or just simply not hear it?
Just not here.
All right, item 2C, consideration of an ordinance ordering the demolition of the property located at 212 Smith Street.
Thank you, Mayor Morgan. This is the house that has been found to be unfit for human habitation. We've been working with the property owner since April of 2020. We held the formal hearing, formal orders. Now we're in front of the Board of Aldermen for a passage of the demolition order. That if you pass it, it will give them 90 days to begin repair or demolition of themselves. So staff is recommending approval of the demolition order as presented in the Board of Aldermen packet.
Okay. Any questions? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion, a second. All in favor? It's unanimous. All right, item D is consideration of and discussion and consideration of the purchase of a vaccine and weekly testing tracker software.
Madam Mayor and Board, you have in your packet a memo from Human Resources Director Crystal Tanner regarding the COVID vaccine and weekly testing tracking software. As you all are probably aware, and I think it's mentioned in the memo as well, OSHA has mandated that employers with over 100 employees, beginning December the 5th, the employees either have to be fully vaccinated or they have to start weekly testing for COVID and wear a mask. So there's been some court challenges to that. You know, I think right now I'm not sure where it stands, but there's been some lawsuits filed. We don't know what's going to happen with that. You know, it may gain some traction and get done. It may still be implemented on December the 5th. We're asking for the board to approve the money to purchase some software. Right now, we have about 24% of our employees, which is roughly 65 employees that are vaccinated, which means we have about 205 that are not. So we'll have to track those. And it's not an option. So, you know, for those employees that aren't vaccinated, we're not telling them they have to get vaccinated. OSHA's telling them they have to get vaccinated. It's not an option. there is an option. The option would be you can pay the fine. I think it's $14,000 per infraction. So, the deal is if an employee doesn't want to get vaccinated, they don't want to submit to weekly testing, they don't want to wear a mask, their option is to bring us $14,000 a week. I don't think they want to do that either. So, we have to track it, and we can't do that easily. We're asking for the board to approve the software. I talked to Crystal today. If this thing gets held up and it's tied up in court, we won't move forward with the purchase of that software until we know that it's going to be implemented. Because I think there's two time frames, December the 5th and then January the 5th. So it takes about 3 or 4 weeks, you see in the memo, to get the software, to review them, to select a vendor, and then to start getting it in place. So we would like to start that process so that if it does come into effect when they say it's going to, we're ready for it. It's $15,000. We would use the ARPA money for that. We've got about roughly $60,000 left from our first round of ARPA money. That is an allowed expense for that. So we're asking the board to approve that tonight. And again, we wouldn't move forward with it unless we know that it's going to take place. But you hear all kinds of things. Some folks say OSHA can't do it. Some of them say OSHA can do it. I don't know how quickly it's going to get through the court system. Some things COVID related have gotten through the court system pretty easily. Some of them have been tied up. So I don't know. It's like everything else that we've been dealing with since 2020. It's kind of on a time frame of its own, but we need to be prepared for it in case we have to, because I can tell you, tracking 200 employees every week, their tests, all of them testing at different times, then those getting the vaccine. I mean, it'll be difficult. And we have to have that information available for OSHA to come in and audit. We have to report it to OSHA, everything else. So, I mean, it's not a matter of just having a thing, putting a check box and sending it on. Be glad to answer any questions. Crystal is here. She can also answer any questions you might have.
Is there any discussion, or do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. If you got to do it, I'll make the motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion, a second. All in favor? It's unanimous. All right, we are to item 2E.
This one kind of follows up on that one. This is an incentive to try and get more employees vaccinated. As I said, we've roughly got about 65 employees vaccinated, about 205 non-vaccinated. So we're trying to do something to get more employees vaccinated. There's a lot of benefits to that. Obviously, it cuts down on the weekly testing, cuts down on the weekly tracking. It also cuts down probably some on the quarantine that we have to, folks get quarantined, they're out for quarantine, they're out, different reasons, COVID related. So we're trying to get more folks to go out and get the vaccination. I've had some questions about, why don't you just raise insurance premiums for those folks that aren't vaccinated? We don't want to punish the people for not being vaccinated. We want to give them incentives to go out and get vaccinated. We want to incentivize them to do that. We don't really want to say, hey, it's going to cost you more if you're not. So we thought this is the best way to do it. We think we can get more folks to come out and do that. So we're recommending $650 vaccine incentive to all employees who are either currently fully vaccinated or who received their first shot by December the 6th. If it's approved tonight, it gives them a month to go out and get the first shot. For those that are fully vaccinated, they will be eligible for the incentive. The more we can get there, it's proven that, probably it's transmitted less if you're vaccinated. We know that if you come in contact with someone that has COVID, if you have the vaccine, you're not within, time frame around them or whatever, you don't have to quarantine. So there's, just different benefits to being vaccinated. Helps our workforce, helps continuity of folks in different departments, and helps those departments run. So we're asking the board for $650. We're anticipating it costing about $123,000 if we get 75% of our workforce vaccinated. I don't know that we'll hit that number. That's what we're shooting for. And again, we don't want to go in and penalize them by charging them basically more in insurance for not getting vaccinated. That would penalize them. We don't want to do that. I've got a feeling OSHA will probably come in at some point and do that anyway. So there's not much need in us doing it now. Right now, we want to try the path of giving them an incentive to do it. If they don't want to do it, that's fine. If OSHA rules pass, at some point they'll have to comply with those anyway. But we think it's a good incentive. We've looked around different municipalities and counties in the triad, ranging anywhere from about $300 up to, I think the highest I've seen so far is $1,000, somewhere in there. I know Rockingham County Schools just approved yesterday a $4,000 bonus for their teachers. I don't think it's COVID related, but I mean, it's somewhat because of COVID, but I don't think it's tied to getting a vaccine or anything. So bonuses are out there, but usually the bonuses to get the vaccine range from about 300 to about 1,000 is the most we've seen. So we're kind of hitting in the middle of that. You know, be glad to answer any questions the board has. Again, Crystal's here if she can answer any as well. And those funds will also come from the ARPA funds that we've already received the first round of.
Am I correct that if they have a religious reason, they would not receive, to not take the shot, that they would not receive the incentive?
That's correct. Is that correct, Crystal? Yeah.
Okay,
That's correct.
Thank you.
And on that, and I meant to mention that earlier, the OSHA regulations that they have out there that are, you know, kind of wavy about whether or not they are implemented, they do have in them exemptions. If you've got a legitimate exemption, then you don't necessarily have to get it. I'm not familiar with all of those exemptions, but a religious reason is one, a medical reason is one. I can tell you those exemptions are really hard to come by. The parameters they have put around them make them pretty difficult to obtain.
Okay, are there further questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion with this administration that we're facing with Washington now. We don't have any choice but to go along with until we get some representation there. So I'll make the motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second. Either Chris or Joe.
Who did you get for the second, Keith?
Second.
I have multiple seconds, so it's whoever wants to claim it.
All right, we'll say Joe because he repeated it. And Kenny with the motion. All those in favor? It's unanimous. All right, item 2F is consideration of an ordinance for budget amendment number 3. Mr. Swisher?
Madam Mayor, you have 3 amendments for the expenditure side. 2 of those have offsetting revenue. The first one is a traffic study for Old Salem Road and Tig Lane intersection, $58,000. We covered 20% of that. 80% of it's covered through the MPO grant. 20% we have in our fund for Caleb's Creek. The second amendment in expenditures is for the Kernersville Lake Dam. That is Kernersville Lake down on Old Valley School Road. As you all know, we've been doing some repairs to that dam so far, about $300,000, I think. We've got to do some caulking on some cracks. I think this is the last thing we have left. It's nothing major, but it's something that we have been told we need to do. So that's $38,500 that we currently do not have budgeted for that project. And the last one is $57,000 to cover a transfer from the general fund to the Kernersville Creek Greenway Capital Project Ordinance for construction management services and materials testing. So those have offsetting revenues. See on the second page or on the back page, whichever one, however it's printed out. We have the stormwater fund. We have some expenditures and offsetting revenues in that for the Core John Road. And then the Recreation Facility Capital Project Ordinance Fund, you see where we transferred $3,225,823 from the American Rescue Act Fund into the Recreation Facility Capital Project Fund. That was approved last month by the Board of Aldermen. Be glad to answer any questions that you may have regarding any of those amendments.
Are there any questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? A second from Kenny Cruz. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Okay, presentation of the 2020 Growth and Traffic Data Annual Report and presentation of the 2020 Thoroughfare and Street Plan Annual Report. I'll recognize Mr. Hadley for these two items.
Thank you, Mayor Morgan. So the annual growth and traffic report came out of the Thoroughfare and Street planning process, where we gather data every year and update it to keep the public informed and also keep us informed of where we're trending to. We also use this data and share with our development community and citizens who are looking for more detailed data. On the basic, population of Kernersville, of course, there's many sources in the report. You'll see the July 1st annual estimate from the North Carolina demographer. You'll see our ESRI subscription and community data. And also we keep our own town of Kernersville estimate based upon new housing. It's approximately 26,000. We're adding about 800 new persons per year. Regarding single family, detached, our projections are being matched by our actual being built each year. So every year during the growth report, we look at it what actually was built and check it against our projections. And our projections are pretty straight on. As we increase the availability of lots, we're seeing an increase in housing. We had a slight slowdown due to materials and so forth and some of the housing categories, but we're estimating that will pick back up. Also, single family attached. We had projected that single family attached will equal detached. Attached being like townhomes or duplexes and so forth. And we're seeing that in our annual growth, that attached are almost equaling our detached. That's really the change in demographics, people downsizing, and also more of that product being available in Caleb's Creek, Weldon, and different other projects that are making it attached units available. Apartments, we continue to see apartments come and go. That's basically being a smaller market. We're going to see some apartments absorbed, and in a few years later, see additional ones. We're projecting additional apartments this fiscal year into next year. So the apartments continue on the trend that we've seen in the past. Regarding commercial, we have projections in there, of course, the commercial projections after the 2008 recession and the whole world changing on Amazon delivery, Prime delivery, everybody involved, more online shopping, and stabilized the growth of commercial. Fortunately, in Kernersville, we have a very strong regional shopping center of the Target, Walmart, Lowe's home improvement area that weathered the pandemic actually quite well. Their sales actually, like Lowe's sales actually went up. And of course, Target and Walmart did extremely well because they're also competing with online and pickup. And many of our small restaurants, local restaurants, had great support during the pandemic. And our other fast casual and fast food restaurants, of course, are doing extremely well. And so the commercial, we don't see a lot of new commercial projected, but we see our commercial staying steady and prosperous. Industrials like apartments, we'll see a large amount of construction with absorption. And of course, the recently approved North Point development is being called the Piedmont Commerce Center. Is going to add 1.4 million acres of industrial space. And so that's somewhat following our projections of every 5 years, approximately 1 million square feet of industrial logistics space being constructed. Of course, eventually we'll build out that space. And so we'll be looking at industrial projections further out, knowing the availability of land left. Institutional at the hospital and other activities where, of course, the hospital is good news is adding on. In the institutional growth, we're seeing pretty steady. Institutional will also be like schools, but that's going to be pretty steady and following the previous trends. I should note that the hospital, as it matures, as it as it stays there and has strong activity. We're starting to see a spinoff of medical office interest around the medical center. You know, if you go to Baptist or you go to Forsyth Medical Center, any hospital, you'll see medical offices kind of surrounding the hospital area. And you know, that we saw some strong interest before the 2008 recession and the pandemic, but we're seeing that come back again. So I think we're going to have a nice spinoff from the medical industry. And also Moses Cone is getting very aggressive. Regarding the traffic, of course, during the pandemic, here's a chart showing sharp decline of traffic in 2020 in April, of course, coming back and still below pre-pandemic levels. And of course, we'll continue to monitor that as we move into 2021 towards 2022. And of course, the NCDOT has traffic counts. In this report is 2017, but the new counts have been released. Will be part of our 2021 update. Also, we put it on the website. It's a good source of information as we study their traffic flows and their traffic projections. Be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions at this time? All right.
Regarding the annual report on a thoroughfare street plan, once again, this is a requirement of the thoroughfare and street plan. The annual report is presented. You know, some of the NCDOT, the Beltway projects are really full steam. We should see that Beltway open up by 2022. Kernersville Boulevard, of course, is a big project for Kernersville, the Big Mill Farm Road interchange and the US 421 Salem Parkway Hopkins Road widening. We're currently looking at right-of-way acquisition starting back up again in 2022 with a contract let 2025, a completion date yet undetermined. And these are all, everything on this in the report, of course, is still flowing with NCDOT, trying to firm up all their funding. But things are getting back on track. This project here, we're confident that they will be able to start up that right-of-way acquisition because they're nearly done with their design. The major element of right-of-way acquisition, of course, is being done with the engineering design work, and that's nearly completed. The Macy Grove Road extension, North Main Street to Piney Grove Road, right-of-way had started. Now we're looking at potential contract being let in 2023, but that may move, but that'll be a valuable extension of the Macy Grove Road to Piney Grove, picking up a lot of traffic that now would travel Bowden Hammer Street, trying to get down to Salem Parkway 421. A couple of local projects, the Piney Grove Road 3 lane from Nelson Street to Brown Road. That's still NCDOT project, potential right-of-way starting late 2027. And the widening of Kernersville Road, where they're waiting for funding, but it is on the cycle to be funded. And that's a widening from Harmon Creek to Sedge Garden. And as you know, if you live down that way or travel down that traffic light, they definitely need it. Finally, some of the interstate widening, I-40 will be widened to 6 lanes, some right-of-way potential starting in 2027, and the widening of Salem Parkway 2028. So those will be interesting project of the construction and delays. So we'll wait for that. Town projects, the good news, Dorn has started the Kernersville Greenways under construction. I did walk it with my dog on Saturday because I am a town official. I'm allowed to trespass Dorn, right? And my dog and I loved it. We enjoyed it. So that's exciting. The small sidewalk project we're working on Old Winston Road is going well. We're looking at probably going into construction 2022. The good news is we just received notice that our other projects from the MPO for the West Mountain Street sidewalk and 3-lane widening, those funds are being released. That will be the next year's project. And then South Cherry Street sidewalk, the Harmon Lane sidewalk, the Broad Street sidewalk, and Southern Street sidewalk Greenway are all been released for funding, and there's a cycle, about one each year moving ahead. As you may recall, all our sidewalk and greenway project is trying to build from our downtown network out to the outlying areas. So all these projects are great projects for that. Lastly, on Onward Kernersville, the Onward Kernersville wrapped up their goal setting, and there's 5 major goals in Onward Kernersville regarding transportation. I'm not going to cover them in detail, but really the big thing on the Onward Kernersville goals, it's kind of like we're at a crossroad now for transportation. We can certainly undertake the smaller projects like sidewalks and some greenway projects, but to take the next step on addressing our future transportation needs, we're really going to need to look at if we're going to start our old transportation program back up. I mean, that's going to be the key. Current staffing, we can do small projects, but the community is going to have to sit down and really look at, are we going to be aggressive and undertake transportation like we did after Kernersville 2020. Kernersville 2020 was a visioning process back in 1998. Onward Kernersville was a new vision to build on that. But after that 2020 vision, that's where we got the road bond in place. With that road bond, we also put major funding from our general fund in, and we had a full-time division almost working on transportation. But that's something the community will need to tackle in the future. And that's it for the annual report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hadley. Are there any questions? Do I have a motion from the board to acknowledge and accept the 2020 Growth and Traffic Data Annual Report and the 2020 Thoroughfare and Street Plan Annual Report?
So moved.
Okay, I hear Chris Thompson making the motion, Bruce Boyer with the second. All in favor? It's unanimous. All right, item I, discussion regarding directional signage on South Main Street. But I understand from you it's more of an update.
It is, and
Okay.
actually I got good news. We've been back and forth with DOT about some signage there on South Main Street, right as you approach the stoplight there at Cagney's. Initially they said, well, we'll let you put the overhead signage up. The board voted not to do that. I think then we asked a question about some signage, some of the historic signage, brown signage, talking about how to get into downtown. They said, well, we'll let you put one up, then we take the one off on the interstate. Never did really understand that line of thinking, but it's not my line of thinking to understand. But anyway, we asked them about painting some arrows on the road. They said, no, you can't do that. But Dorn told me tonight, they have agreed now, and I think this is correct, Dorn, to allow us to put a sign up. We can design it, and they'll put it on the side of the road, similar to the brown sign that goes up, kind of delineating which lane goes which way. If you get in the far lane, you turn left to go up Cherry Street, and if you stay in the far right lane, you go straight to come into town. Is that correct? Yeah. So good news as of tonight, that now they don't get too excited. They may change their mind. By the time we get the sign designed and up, they may say, no, we don't want you to put it up, but we're going to hurry so we can get it up before they change their mind. So we'll have a sign of some sort up there to let people know which lane kind of takes them straight into town and which lane turns them up Cherry Street. So good news on that. If the board is fine with that, we will proceed in that manner. That's all I've got
concerns?
on that. Agreed.
Sounds like go ahead.
We will.
All right, we are to the consent agenda. After the consent agenda, we'll have speakers from the floor. I have one speaker signed up. If there's anyone else who'd like to address the board on a non-agenda item, feel free to fill out a card there in the back. Item 3 is the consent agenda. These matters are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion with no separate discussion unless a board member or citizen so requests, in which event the matter will be removed from the consent agenda and considered under the following item: approval of minutes for the September 29 briefing. B, approval of minutes for the September 29 closed session. C, approval of minutes for the October 5 regular meeting. D, approval of minutes for the October 11 special session. E, consideration of a lease agreement with Crisis Control. F, consideration of a lease with the Kernersville Little Theater for the Harmon Park building. G, for Forsyth County tax refunds. Is there anyone in the audience or staff who'd like to see any of the items removed from the consent agenda? Are there any board members who'd like to see any items removed from the consent agenda? Do I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
Motion to approve items 3A through 3G.
Okay, I have a motion from Alderman Thompson, a second from Alderman Cruz. All those in favor? It's unanimous. And I'd like to recognize our speakers from the floor. I've got Madeline Bush signed up. And if you could turn the microphone on. Thank
Is it
you.
on now?
Yeah, we turn it off between speakers to
Yeah,
avoid.
I know it's above my head also, so.
You can move it anywhere you want to.
Oh, can I?
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to congratulate all of the new board that's coming on. Thank everyone who served on the board. And I would like to say that the open communication that we started, that Jenny started, the transparency, the better communication, I look forward to hearing. I'd like to especially welcome JR to the board. I love to see the sense of diversity in Kernersville. I'm thrilled with it. I would like for Jenny to hand off that ask the alderman idea to someone, which I thought was very helpful. And going into the direction of diversity, I'd like to see Kernersville a welcoming and open community. And I'm here to offer my services so that the Kernersville community can better understand the gay community. But thank you for all who served. I look forward to hearing from the new members. And I'd like to say that the meet and greet that from the Brewer's Kettle was very informative. I personally got to meet a lot of people who I already know, but new people who I now know what's in their hearts and in their minds. And I only pray that Kernersville does move forward with their sense of community and diversity. So thank you.
Thank you, Madeline. All right, any other speakers from the floor? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the town manager's report.
Madam Mayor, I have one item you have in your packet. This is an ordinance to allow the possession or consumption of alcoholic beverages at special permitted events in designated areas at specified locations. This has been discussed several times. I think most recently it came up when Governor Cooper allowed municipalities to have outdoor beer and wine on sidewalks, or outdoor dining. Basically, the town adopted an ordinance as long as Governor Cooper's emergency order was in effect to allow beer and wine outdoor dining on town sidewalks and on town rights of way. And so we have a couple of folks doing that. I know it's been discussed before about events in parks, not every park, but in certain parks, events that would allow alcohol at those. And Ernie and I discussed it. We discussed it with Town Attorney John Wolf, Town Attorney Ed Powell, Chief Summers. And I think the consensus was, number one, it already occurs in some of the parks, especially at wedding receptions. There's wine there, champagne, whatnot. So in talking with other municipalities that had this type of ordinance, they said it was better to have it and allow it and have some parameters around it and be able to control it than not have it and it just take place. So that's kind of what we came up with for it in certain parks. Again, it's not every park and it's not every event. So I'll go over the ordinance that's for 4th of July Park, Ivy Redmond Sports Complex, Harmon Park. It's in designated areas of those parks. It wouldn't be in the whole park. So it's what we'll have, and it's also in designated public areas of downtown Kernersville, and it defines what downtown Kernersville is. Basically on Main Street, it is from Harmon Lane on on the south end to Railroad Street on the north end. And on Mountain Street, it is from Short Street on the east to Cherry Street on the west. So we've got some parameters around it. You see the provisions A through I. The main thing there is they would have to submit a request for a permit submitted to the town. We will form a special events permitting committee. Will be composed of the town manager, the police chief, the public services director, Parks and Recreation director, and our safety and risk director. That committee will recommend approval or denial of the event, and will establish any extra conditions that we feel necessary to make the event safe and to keep the event in order. They are required, if that is approved, the downtown events will have to come to the Board of Aldermen, because all downtown events come to the board anyway if it involves street closures. So that would come to the board. If it's approved, the permittee would be responsible for obtaining all ABC permits. That's, if they don't get those, then they can't have the event. They would have to get the permits once they receive approval and let the town know they have those permits and all necessary insurance and everything for that. They would be required to have one police officer per 100 people at a max of 5. So if you've got 500 people, you have 5 police officers. If it's going over that, then we might set it as a special standard. They have to have more officers. It's just a matter of, can we get them provided? Whatever they would pay for those, that would be on them to pay for those. They can't do it, and this would apply mainly for the parks. They can't do it at an event that is targeted for those 21 and under. If it's say it's a youth softball tournament and they say, hey, we want to serve beer and wine over here to a softball tournament, can't do that. I mean, it has to be an event. I'm not saying that folks 21 and under can't be there, just saying that it can't be an event that is targeted at people 21 and under. It has to be an adult event. And we get requests for these all of the time for the parks. I mean, and it's like, hey, can I have a concert out at Ivy Redmond Park and serve beer or wine? No, you can't do it. Can I have a wedding? And really, again, it happens with weddings. Can I have a wedding in Harmon Park and have wine at the gazebo? Tell them no, they can't do it. I would say probably 75% of them probably still do it. We just don't see it. So you have all those parameters. You can't bring outside beer and wine into the event. So if we're having an event somewhere, they can't bring in beer and wine from the outside. The officer, they would have designated areas to enter the event or to enter that area. Someone would be there monitoring that. You can't have outside beer and wine. So if the board approves that, we would need to amend Chapter 11, where it talks about alcohol permitted for special events. Just add the word except in that in 11-2 and in section 20-15. So, this kind of follows up also. I think there was some discussion about alcohol being allowed for events at the museum, events they have. It was already allowed there for any building that the town leases to someone, and that lease is for 1 year or more. They're allowed to have alcohol there anyway. So the museum could have already done it. The Women's Club has been doing it for several years now. So this kind of follows on that. Be glad to answer any questions. Ernie's here. He can address it as well from the park side. Ed Powell, Chief Summers, any of those folks can address it as to some of the parameters in the ordinance, some of the provisions we have there, and so forth.
I'd like to make a comment on this. I'm very old school, and I don't adjust very well to some of these situations. I think there's excellent safeguards. I think that we have set it up as well as we could in terms of having police presence and making sure that they have a permit. My 2 reasons for objecting to it are, one, potential confusion of people that attend an event that maybe had a permit, and they think that if they come to a different event that doesn't have a permit, that they can consume alcohol on town property. The second thing is an example of Harmon Park, where you've got a playground in one area and a gazebo, a couple hundred feet away, that that you're doing, or even at Ivy Redmond Park where you might have some sports games going, that you could have children present that are nearby to an event that has alcohol. So for those reasons, I'm uncomfortable with it. I do think you've set it up as well as you could. And so I'm going to vote no on this, just based on my principles.
I'd just like to make a quick comment. I respectfully disagree with Bruce. I do respect his opinion. I think
I'm not sure we can hear you, Chris.
I think this has been a long time coming. I think we're one of the only municipalities, and being in the middle of Forsyth, Winston-Salem, High Point, and Greensboro, that do not have something like this in place. I think it brings a lot of different possibilities for even the small businesses. If there's roads closed and there's an event going on downtown, or the new Parks and Rec building where we've got 600 to 1,000 spaces to seek people to have, whether it's a wedding or a wedding reception. It seems like we've been talking about this for 6 to 8 years, or I've had questions about it, whether it's an adopt-a-thon on Saturday morning or a food truck event on Saturday or Sunday. The similar events that people are leaving Kernersville to go to Greensboro or to Winston. So I see this as a benefit for our town. And I think it can be managed properly. And I think what you put together, I agree with, and I would make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second? A second by Alderman Cruz. Any further comments or discussion? All in favor? Thank you. All opposed? It passes 4-1. Okay. Further matters to present?
I have nothing else, no.
All right. Mr. Powell, do you have any matters to present this evening?
Madam Mayor, no report tonight.
Thank you. All right, matters to be presented by the Mayor and Board of Aldermen. I'll start with Alderman Penix. Thank you. Alderman Boyer.
First of all, I know it's now a couple of weeks ago, but I want to thank the town of Kernersville and the Chamber of Commerce for the downtown trick-or-treat. I normally go trick-or-treating with grandchildren. Sometimes it's downtown, sometimes it's in our neighborhood. I was downtown for this one, and I was very impressed with the crowd of people that gathered. And we should also express appreciation to the merchants that were investing in candy, but making it a safe event for the children. So thought that was a wonderful event. The other thing I would say, this is my last meeting in this term, sitting up here and getting a chance to vote on issues that I feel are important to Kernersville. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time here, and I've enjoyed working with the folks around this table here. And I'd also like to compliment the staff, the town employees, because we really have very motivated employees that do their job extremely well. And when I call a department head to ask a question, I get the information that I need so that I can get back to the citizens. And so we really have an outstanding town, and it's been a pleasure. On my Facebook account, it popped up today, a post from a number of years ago after an election that I was elected to have one of these seats, and it just reminded me of the verse from Matthew 20:28. I came to serve, not to be served, and I hope that I have exercised my faith in what I have tried to do as an alderman, and I just appreciate that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Boyer. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Alderman Cruz.
Like Bruce, I'd like to thank the town for allowing me to be an alderman for the past eight years. I've spent my life here. I thank the board that I've worked with. They've did an excellent job. The town has got the best staff of any town I've ever seen. Curtis has did a great job of managing, and Jeff has been great to help us and advise us. And I just hope that he retires, that he don't go to Washington and be corrupted with that bunch of hoodlums up there. So I'll stay in Kernersville. I'm a Republican, and I'm not satisfied with this administration that we've got in Washington now. And I just pray that everyone will stay on top of these Democrats that are coming in and make sure that we do what's right for the town. And if they don't, let's call them out. And I'll be the first. I've been in a bunch of battles in my life. I'm a redneck, and I'll be right here. I may not be at every board meeting, but when I see an issue, I will call you out, and I will be on top of things. As John knows, Bill, I met him, and the general, I hadn't seen much of him, but he's been in Washington, so I'm fearful of him. But I know the rest of these boys, that he's been around the Democrats, so I'm sure we can work with you, and you can see how great Kernersville is, and hope that the Democratic Party won't try to destroy them. And I thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'll be in the same place I've been for 75 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Cruz. Alderman Thompson?
I'd just like to say what an honor it's been to work with Bruce and Jenny and Kenny for the last several years and get to know them better. We've all grown a little bit and learned a lot about each other. It's been an honor to serve with you all, and I appreciate our time together. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further business before the board this evening? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Alderman Boyer. I have a second by Alderman Thompson. All those in favor? It's unanimous. This meeting is now adjourned.